We are all in on buying Lamar Jackson for the 2023 season, but who should you be selling for the Baltimore Ravens? All that and more this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. Kate, today we are talking about the Baltimore Ravens and some players that we would like to buy, sell, and potentially hold from this backfield. Kate, who is the one player that you are absolutely buying from this offense?
It's all in season on Lamar Jackson, who is being drafted in dynasty startups on average as the quarterback 5. So we're talking high pricing here. He's not necessarily, fallen into the depths of QB2 territory, but I don't feel like we appreciate Lamar Jackson enough from a fantasy standpoint. We need to be all in on that price tag because it's a huge value. Lamar Jackson coming off a 5-year, $260 million contract extension worked out well in his favor. This team is all in on Lamar Jackson, and for good reason, because since 2019, it has a 39-15 QB record. That's fourth among NFL quarterbacks, has thrown 95 passing touchdowns. That's tied for the 9th most. And that's despite the fact that nobody general public perception is that he's not a good passer.
Yeah.
Offensive touchdowns, guess what? Ranks 7th among quarterbacks. And that's missing 5 games in each of the last 2 seasons. He's got the 8th most rushing yards among any NFL player, literally any position, running backs included, since 2019. He's so valuable from a fantasy standpoint because of that rushing upside. And now we get Todd Monken coming in. I think we can appreciate what he's going to do to, I think, wake up this offense a little bit. We're going to probably see some increased passing volume. And I'm not concerned about that at all because Lamar Jackson is a good passer.
Yes.
Tied for the 9th most passing yards with Derek Carr, or 9th most passing touchdowns with Derek Carr. Throw 10 fewer interceptions in that span. Among all quarterbacks with at least 500 pass attempts since 2019, he ranks 13th in NFL passer rating. And it just can't be understated what his ability to break off a run at any given moment, his elusiveness is so off the charts. And that provides him one of the safest floors you can find in fantasy football. And you don't have to compromise upside. Lamar Jackson should be so much more aggressively pursued in fantasy than he is right now. What are we doing?
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit of his value right now.
I need to breathe, man. I'm so amped on this Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson. It's unbelievable.
Right now on Dynasty League football, he's being drafted as QB5. And listen, I get it. The top 4 are Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow. However, any week that Lamar Jackson is healthy, he is a threat to be the QB1 of that week. And I think, Kate, if we're ranking our quarterbacks like in a week-to-week league, right, I have a hard time ranking really anybody besides Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, ahead of Lamar Jackson because of the rushing potential, because he's he's gotten better as a passer over the last couple of years. And then on top of that, Kate, it's the age. Like, Lamar Jackson's been in the league since 2018. He's been a full-time starter since the back half of the 2018 season. But he's younger than Joe Burrow. He's younger than Josh Allen. And I think we kind of forget that, which is absolutely crazy, right? So I love Lamar. I think if you want a quarterback with QB1 upside, but you don't have to pay top 3 QB price, it's Lamar Jackson. And what's awesome about Lamar is that even the numbers that he's posted over the last couple of years, because I think everybody remembers the MVP season. They don't feel like he's been that type of player. Look at the 11 games last year, Kate, that he started and finished, and you kind of project that out over a 17 game schedule. It's 3,500 passing yards. It's 26 passing touchdowns. It's almost 1,200 rushing touchdowns and 1,200 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. Those are QB1 numbers, like elite numbers. And now with the addition of Odell Beckham, with a healthier Rashod Bateman, with Zay Flowers, who you drafted, there's no reason why he can't put up huge numbers.
In the span since he's become a full-time starter in 2019, he is one of just 2 quarterbacks in that span to perform as a top 5 fantasy quarterback in more than 35% of his games played. The other quarterback is Josh Allen. He has played 68% of his games as a top 12 quarterback, second highest rate among quarterbacks in that span, only behind Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
This is an elite ceiling paired with an incredibly safe floor, just based on his rushing ability, just based on his playing style. Like it does so much. His mobility does so much for his ability as a passer in terms of boosting that efficiency. We're going to see more volume this year.
Absolutely.
I'm all in.
Can we run through a few trades really quickly? So a lot of these are super flex or 2 QB leagues, because I mean, if you're playing in a 1 QB league, he's really, really cheap to acquire. And you can go look at Dynasty League Football for some of those trades. But here's a couple trades in super flex leagues that I want your thoughts on. So again, super flex league, pick 103 in this year's draft and a first-round pick in next year's draft for Lamar Jackson.
I'll, as long as that's not immediately projected to be a top end pick in next year's draft, where you might get a Caleb Williams, Drake May. I'll go with Lamar Jackson.
And even assume that's the pick 103 this year, that it's probably.
I mean, yeah, you know exactly what you're getting with Lamar Jackson. You are getting a safe elite quarterback.
Yeah, in 103 this year in a super flex draft is probably anybody but Anthony Richardson and Bijan Robinson. So is it Gibbs? Are you getting Bryce Young? Just give me Lamar. Like it's just such a valuable asset. A couple more for you. This one's interesting. Jalen Hurts for Lamar Jackson and a 2024 first-round pick.
I'll probably take Lamar in the first. I don't think the gap between Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts is as significant. Like I love both quarterbacks, and they're different quarterbacks, but I don't think the gap, especially for fantasy football, is significant enough that I'm going to pass up a first-round pick.
Now, here's a trade that I would not do, but I want your thoughts. It is Lamar Jackson and the 105 in a super flex rookie draft for Patrick Mahomes. I would just rather have Mahomes.
I'll take Mahomes there.
Yeah.
We talked about this in one of our mailbag episodes several weeks back about like, what is the price for Patrick Mahomes?
It's not that.
It's not that, and it's as close to being untradeable as you could probably get. So odds are stacked against you to get that trade done. But hey, somebody did it, and I'll take the Patrick Mahomes side. But generally speaking, I'll take the
yes,
Lamar Jackson side.
Last one. Justin Fields and Michael Pittman for Lamar Jackson.
I'll take Lamar Jackson.
I would agree. There's just so much more safety. Yeah.
And Lamar Jackson, he's already a better passer. We already know the rushing ceiling is just as high as it is for Justin Fields. I'll take what I know I have in Lamar Jackson.
All right. So we are buying Lamar Jackson, especially in your super flex leagues, because the upside is there. The weapons are finally there. It's not great, but it's just so much better than what he's had over the last couple of years. Go out and buy Lamar Jackson right now. Okay, let's talk about who we are trying to sell from this Baltimore Ravens offense next on this episode of Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. This episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. because right now new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. There's also a million other things to bet on, such as NFL futures. You can go bet on your favorite team to make the playoffs this year. You can bet on NBA futures. We've got a big trade in the NBA that happened on Sunday. You can bet on golf. There's UFC. There's boxing. Anything you can imagine, it's there on FanDuel. So don't miss your chance to snag a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. All right, we are back talking about the player that we want to sell for the Baltimore Ravens before the season begins. Kate, who is that player for you?
I hate to say it, it's JK Dobbins, running back for the Baltimore Ravens, who I love. I love watching JK Dobbins play football, period. Haven't gotten to do it a ton over the last 4 years. Currently being drafted on average in Dynasty startups as the running back 15, which floors me because we have not even seen JK Dobbins play a full full 2 seasons yet. Like, this is all based on upside and potential and us buying into this rushing offense. But like the gap, I think, between JK Dobbins and a guy like Gus Edwards, it feels more significant than I think it is to the Baltimore Ravens. One of the most underrated headlines probably throughout this entire OTA's process, JK Dobbins did not participate because he's seeking another contract with the Baltimore Ravens. And if I'm looking at that situation and being honest, like, he's been great. He's been efficient, right? He's averaged 5.9 yards per attempt throughout his career. But is he the difference maker that, the Ravens are going to be going all out to sign him to a second deal? I don't think the market's there for running backs, period.
Do you think the Ravens are a team that would shell out a lot of money for a running back?
No, because they haven't needed to. That's the thing about the Baltimore Ravens, is that based on their system, based on the fact that the quarterback is Lamar Jackson and he poses a rushing threat in and of itself, they don't need to invest significant dollars or draft capital because the system is so, it's so perfect for the run game. And JK Dobbins, a great running back, but if he's actually planning to hold out for a second contract that has some substantial dollars to it, I don't think they're going to get it. And he's not utilized in the receiving game. His 2020 season saw just 24 total targets. Played 15 games. That's not a lot of upside. And when you look at the quarterbacks, right, running back target rate among quarterbacks with 500 or more pass attempts since 2019, Lamar Jackson's at 13.4%. That is dead last among those 46 qualifying quarterbacks. Dead last. The PPR upside is non-existent.
So let's talk a little bit about the system, because we've talked about this a little bit before. The Greg Roman offense was really good at allowing their backs to be efficient in the run game. And I still think J.K. Dobbins and Todd Monken's offense is going to be more efficient, but I just don't see them being that dedicated to the run, right? Like, where you can bank on 28 running back touches a game. Like, I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think in an ideal world, J.K. Dobbins gets like 14 carries and 2 receptions, and Gus Edwards gets 11 carries, and Lamar Jackson gets 4 or 5, and that's your rushing attack. Like, I think that's what Baltimore is going to be aiming for here. And I think there's a chance that we see J.K. Dobbins a little bit more involved in the passing game, just because they haven't really thrown the ball to the running backs before. But even then, I just fail to see the upside in a running back that's being ranked that high, because is he going to get the volume? And on top of that, like, does Baltimore even want to give him that much volume with his injury history and with Gus Edwards still being on the roster?
That's the thing. I feel like Gus Edwards is probably like the most underrated aspect of this entire conversation. this team really likes Gus Edwards, and
As they should. He's a good player.
he's a great player, and he knows this team inside and out. But like, again, I don't think the Ravens perceive the gap between JK Dobbins and Gus Edwards to be as significant as the general public would. And that's going to be a big issue when you have a very affordable running back like Gus Edwards, who, has produced every time he's been asked to produce, barring injury. If there's not a big difference between JK Dobbins and Gus Edwards, why are you going to pay JK Dobbins? And that comes to be my issue here. The upside, for as much as I love this offense and scoring potential, I don't see JK Dobbins as a top 15 option, especially, going into a second contract. We know, generally speaking, I prefer to move on from running backs in their second contract.
All right, so let's talk. If we're advocating that you should sell J.K. Dobbins, let's talk about the guys that are being ranked behind him, or drafted behind him. You tell me who you'd rather have, J.K. Dobbins or Javonte Williams?
Javonte Williams.
J.K. Dobbins or Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry. In a win now.
I'd rather have Dobbins there. That's me.
In a win now.
Yeah, in a win now. Rashod White or J.K. Dobbins? I'll take Dobbins.
I'll take Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins or DeAndre Swift?
I'll take Swift.
Okay. Dameon Pierce or J.K. Dobbins?
Pierce.
Yeah, that one to me is pretty obvious.
Easy.
Now, if you want to trade him for like a non-running back and you just want to flip him for a different asset, I've got some trades here courtesy of Dynasty League Football. J.K. Dobbins for DJ Moore.
I
think I'll take Dobbins in that one.
I think I will too. And that probably comes down to my hesitancy. I think I'm a little bit lower on DJ Moore for fantasy than some of the public might be now. Hint, hint. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. Next one, J.K. Dobbins for Chris Godwin, straight up.
I'll take Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I would lean Dobbins.
Pretty easily.
There. Okay. Woo. I would take Dobbins.
Pretty easily.
Now we're getting into the ones that I just think are ridiculous. J.K. Dobbins for Tom Brady and a 2024 first-round pick.
Come on. When was that trade?
That would be June 5th. We've got several.
Move on.
Several of these. Here's another one. J.K. Dobbins for 2024 first-round pick, 12-team league.
I'll take the first.
Yeah, I would as well. Last one.
Tom Brady. Leave Tom Brady out of your trades, people.
Last one. And this one's really interesting to me. I want your thoughts. J.K. Dobbins. This is a 24-team league. J.K. Dobbins for Christian Watson, straight up.
Oh, I might take Christian Watson there.
I think I would as well. So I think that's what we're advocating. There's a couple running backs that you like that are being drafted behind Dobbins.
Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, Dameon Pierce is the one for me too. But I think if you want to flip Dobbins for an asset, I think you're better off kind of searching for a team that has some depth at receiver, maybe a Chris Godwin, who you like. I like Christian Watson, somebody in that range to get the most value out of J.K. Dobbins. Okay, let's talk about the player that you are holding for the Baltimore Ravens, because we actually have a difference of opinion here, and I can't wait to get to that next. All right, to finish our Baltimore Ravens segment here, we're going to be talking about the player that you should be holding in your dynasty leagues for Baltimore. So, Kate, who is the player that you have?
I think it's Mark Andrews, who right now is being drafted on average as the overall tight end 1, which it feels a little crazy. And there's one player I'd consider moving on from Mark Andrews for, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm assuming so your player is not Mark Andrews.
It's not. It's Rashod Bateman, who's being drafted at wide receiver 39. I just don't know what to do, right? Because I know he's talented. He's going into his third year. He's only 23 years old, but I don't really think you can trade him away right now because you're just not getting the value back. Like if somebody offers you Elijah Moore for Rashod Bateman, like you're not taking that trade, right? Or if somebody offers you Wan'Dale Robinson or Josh Downs. Like you're just not doing that. But I can't advocate going out and buying Rashod Bateman, especially after the news that he needed to get a cortisone shot in his foot this week after practice, and he's still dealing with pain. I at this point, I'm just going to hold him and just wait and see and probably ride it out.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I do think, if Rashod Bateman gets healthy, he's going to have, I think, at some point he's going to have a good game, and that's probably your window to sell when the hype train ekes back up. I don't think holding Mark Andrews, even though obviously you can get a king's ransom for Mark Andrews, is all of that spicy. But like since 2019, I'm just going to sell you on Mark Andrews.
Sure.
Second among tight ends in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, only behind Travis Kelce in all three of those categories. He's so productive. He is so safe. That is the kicker for me. There are 3 players, Marcus, who have had more than 43% of their games played as a top 5 asset. One is the aforementioned Travis Kelce, 62.5% of his games as a top 5 tight end. That is psychotic. You also have Christian McCaffrey, almost 56% of his games played as a top 5. Weirdly, Davis Webb, quarterback, and then it's Mark Andrews at 44% of his games as a top 5 asset. It's just so safe at a position where there is no such thing as safety. And that's why I think even if you're getting a nice offer, a nice package for Mark Andrews, it's really hard to sell because, the rapport is there. Know that I don't think it would be any sort of hot take to say that, Mark Andrews is going to lead the team in receiving this year. Even with the additions they made this offseason, Mark Andrews is Lamar Jackson's QB1 or wide receiver 1, effectively. Exactly. And that kind of safety, I don't think you can pass up. Now, the one way you can maybe pry Mark Andrews out of my hands, regardless of scoring format for your tight ends, is probably a package with Kyle Pitts. But how likely would that package be at this point?
As somebody who owns Kyle Pitts in a lot of leagues, I probably just wouldn't make that deal because obviously the Mark Andrews owner is going to want something on top of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
And I'm so invested into Kyle Pitts right now that I don't want to give up another asset to, move Kyle Pitts. So I'm probably just holding on. So I think that's the hard part is if you own Mark Andrews, you probably aren't trading him straight up for another tight end. The only thing that you can do is, let's say you have Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert or Pat Freiermuth, and the rest of your team is weak. That's where you could potentially move him into another asset, which we've seen, frankly, a ton over the last month or so on Dynasty League football. I'm going to give you a couple trades, and I want your thoughts. So, Mark Andrews for pick 107 and 112.
I'll take Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I would as well. Now you're probably drafting there, like maybe you go back-to-back tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta, right? Something like that. But I don't think.
But still, question marks.
Yeah.
Question marks galore when you already know the answer in Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews for a high first-round pick in the 2024 draft.
I'll take Mark Andrews.
Yeah, it's still such an unknown, right? I would
agree. Everything you're like, every draft pick that you could throw at the wall, it's, if you're a tight end needy team, right, and you're taking that package where maybe you walk away with Sam Laporta, maybe you walk away, with Dalton Kincaid, and you get both of them. The goal is that they produce at a level like Mark Andrews.
This would be a 2024 first-round pick.
Oh, no, sorry. I was talking about the previous package. But yes, the same concept applies. Say, I know it's an early pick. Maybe you get, one of these top end quarterback prospects that everybody is so excited about. You still don't know what that asset is. And I really like the immediacy of the value that Mark Andrews has over the question marks, especially at the tight end position.
All right, so I did find a trade with Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts in it. So this is a super flex league. It's Mark Andrews for Kyle Pitts and Mac Jones. I'm probably just not doing that on either side. Because if you're the Andrews side, is the uncertainty from going from Andrews to Pitts enough to is Mac Jones enough to do it for you? And if you're Kyle Pitts, like if you're the Kyle Pitts manager, I'd rather just hold on to Pitts. And like we're going into year 3 and he's 22 years old. I'd rather just keep my asset and we'll see.
Yeah, I don't really think I don't think that trade needs to happen.
No, I think that's the point. Like it just doesn't need to happen. And that's why, Kate, you're recommending holding Kyle Pitts holding Mark Andrews, who is being drafted as the number 1 tight end in Dynasty League football right now. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms every dayers. Matt and Ryan will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday to continue our AFC North previews. Okay, you and I will be back on Thursday. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Check out our show on YouTube. We're posting shows every single day over there, Locked On Dynasty. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magjuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we'll see you next time.